of money that is strangling our political system and making real debate that we all so desperately want on trade, on bank reform, on taxes, healthcare, education. Virtually impossible. Later on in the show, we'll tell you again how you can get into this whole situation, learn about the Get Money Out campaign, and ultimately stop the political pro-wrestling that we're still getting from most in Washington and, for that matter, outside Washington. We begin today with other folks who are mad as hell, however. Protesters, as you may have heard, are spreading from a small, unrelenting, and persistent group on Wall Street to an ever-growing group in San Francisco, with more planned tonight in Boston, Chicago, LA, even Dallas. The numbers multiplying in Lower Manhattan, where the movement started, as the city's labor unions are now pledging to join, taking the number occupying Wall Street next week from a few hundred to a few thousand. It is not clear what their desired agenda is, but we can only hope it's to help us get the money out. The mega panel today with us, Ari Berman, Touré, and Crystal Ball. And it's very interesting. Hi, guys. Nice to see you. Happy Friday.
Nice to see you. You
don't know this at home, but just seconds ago, there was a man attempting to adjust wiring on the back of Crystal Ball's head. She can't really hear anything, but she's going to pretend and play along like a good professional would. That's why I love when that happens.
We can hear you.
I want to put those guys on the camera. Anyway, we'll talk about that. How do you interpret, Touré, the energy wave that we are witnessing? Not just the wave that you have just recently made with the publication of your book and the pushing of a conversation to a different place. The response that we're seeing to Get Money Out. The expansion of what was this small group on Wall Street that was largely ignored, that is now transitioning through its own unrelenting nature into this. What is going on here, man?
People are angry, and I think that when you say that we're not clear on exactly what they want, and they're not saying this is a pinpoint goal of ours.
I'm saying I hope they want to help me get money out.
No, of course.
That's what I'm saying.
But that there's not a very precise goal highlights that they are angry, and they're so angry that they're like, we're going to do something. We need to take some
I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
You know, this is not a clear goal, but
you think they'll help us get the money out?
I think they should, because people need to put two and two together, right? The reason Wall Street remains so powerful is because they are funding both political parties. And the reason why we get people in the Obama administration who were part of the deregulation push of the Bush administration is because of the money. So I'm glad you're talking about it. I'm glad they're out there. People just have to realize that this is an issue, and then you start talking about the solutions. But if they're not even aware that anything's going on, you're never going to get to that solution.
What do you think about the idea of attaching the Occupy Wall Street energy to the energy that we're witnessing about getting money out? So you take that, you harness that for positive action.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what needs to happen, as a matter of fact, because with Occupy Wall Street, you have this sort of amorphous protest movement. What are they about? What's their message? We don't really know, other than they're frustrated. If you had something very concrete, we want to get the Wall Street money, or the money altogether, out of politics, people would respond to that in even greater numbers. That is a coherent message that this country is ready for, is dying to hear.
There's no representative of Occupy Wall Street here. In fact, I suspect they don't even have a representative. But if there was such a representative, I would propose to them right now that we partner your energy, your resistance, your engagement, the simple message that we have all agreed to, 67,000 of us so far here, maybe the protesters, I don't even know, to take your energy and help to harness that energy for positive change around the singular, exclusive focus of Get Money Out. Think about it. Go learn, learn if you wouldn't, about the actual amendment. That's all it is. You can hate me, you can disagree with me about everything else, but if you want to get money out, I'd love to work with you. It does seem like the 2012 election, even though the political apparatus is nowhere near this, and they called the Politico, wrote about us the other day, called us the Chicago Cubs. They're like, Radigan's lost his mind. He's going to try to get money out of politics. The guy's a Fruit Loop, and if you look at the election, they're going to spend $8 billion next year, which is absolutely correct. At the same time, I don't see how this presidential election doesn't come to this issue because of the amount of money we're going to see spent.
Yeah, well, I'm a Cubs fan, first off, so go Cubs, even though there's some dark days right now. But yeah, I mean, the Obama campaign, it said they're going to have to raise $1 billion. Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, all these guys. Money. Chris Christie's meeting with a bunch of hedge fund guys right now to plan his campaign. So yeah, both parties are complicit right right now in this problem.
I wouldn't say they're complicit. I would say they're trapped.
Yeah.
Because if any one person in that system attempts to get out, I just torch them. And so I think it's also important for us as we all learn. I just did my own learning about this, that we actually learn to have it's a weird thing to say, people are going to be confused, a little bit of empathy and compassion for everybody in the political process, for the simple reason that they are trapped inside of that system. Some willingly, some delightfully, some unwillingly. You'll never know the difference, but what we do know is if we don't relieve all of them of the money at one time, on three, 1, 2, 3, out with an amendment, there's no other way to do it. The panel stays, the conversation continues. We take a break. Bernie Sanders joins us out of D.C. right after this. Well, we talked about the Occupy Wall Street protesters. One of the folks with them and another ally in the mad as hell narrative, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. I shouldn't say mad as hell narrative because having talked with you, Senator, I actually am quite clear that you are mad as hell. If you were to look at these protesters and their energy, and you were to look at the energy in our Get Money Out petition with the message, what I call the caveman communication, Senator, 3 words, get money out. How do you interpret the rising energy?
I think more and more people understand that if we're going to get out of this recession, if we're going to create the millions of jobs we desperately need, you know what? You have to look at Wall Street. These are the crooks who have plunged us into the horrendous economic situation we're in right now, and we're going to need fundamental reform of Wall Street, breaking up these behemoths there, demanding that capital on Wall Street goes into the productive economy, create real jobs for our people. So focusing attention on Wall Street is exactly the right thing to do in my judgment.
I guess the only place where I would disagree with you, Senator, and maybe it's not so much of a disagreement as a distinction, is what Ari was saying earlier, which is that because Wall Street is so active in financing the political system, that while the need to address the gross dysfunction in the capital markets, which you described perfectly, that the only way to address that is to cut off the flow of money from Wall Street to Washington by, again, pushing to get the money out between those two institutions.
Well, that's not in opposition to what I'm saying. Obviously, we have a horrendous campaign finance situation in America today. But it's not just Wall Street. Wall Street is very, very big in terms of funding their friends and punishing those of us who are opposed to them. But it's not just Wall Street. It's the energy companies. It's the military industrial complex. It's the drug companies. It's big money flooding Congress with campaign contributions and lobbying. Clearly, we need real campaign finance reform. And I should tell you, Dylan, that the Citizens United decision obviously made a very bad situation worse, because now these guys can put money into campaigns with no disclosure at all. Nobody knows who they are or how much they're spending.
Which makes it how important, by your measure, that we get money, that we make getting money out a central issue in this presidential election? How important is it that 2012 becomes a referendum on getting money out of our political system?
Well, I think, as I said, the current campaign finance situation is an absolute disaster. We're talking about huge, huge amounts of money coming in from very wealthy individuals, large corporations who want to dominate the agenda in Washington. Citizens United has made it even worse. So if we are talking about the United States as being a vital democracy where ordinary people have power to determine what happens, obviously, you need real campaign finance reform. In my view, that means public funding of elections, getting corporate money out of the system.
But we have to begin with knowing we got to get the money out, and then we can have the debate about how we're going to replace that system. Senator, what is your interpretation of the efforts on China from your colleagues, particularly on currency manipulation and trade? And obviously the White House doesn't seem to be on board with this. The Treasury never classifies China as a currency manipulator. And this is a very good campaign platform, but how much of what we're seeing from the politicians in the Senate is intended at really engaging China, and how much of it is bipartisan pandering?
Well, I certainly hope that we address the China issue in a very bold way. As you know, Dylan, we have a huge trade deficit with China. We have seen corporation after corporation in this country shut down, throw American workers out on the street, and move to China. We've lost millions of good-paying jobs as a result of this disastrous trade policy. I am interested in sustainable energy. And to give you an example, what China is doing is saying to solar companies in America and all over the world, come to China, we will give you very low interest financing, we'll build the buildings for you. How do you compete against that kind of subsidization? I don't think you do. So I think we need new trade policies with China, with the rest of the world, based on fair trade principles, not unfettered free trade.
All right, my last question, unrelated to anything we just discussed, although it's actually related to everything we just discussed. Yesterday, Mark Ames and Yasha Levine broke a story in The Nation magazine. They exposed a letter, a traffic between, I believe it was Friedrich Hayek, who was a Nobel laureate, and Charles Koch, who was financing him. The letter basically exposed, and we talked about this yesterday, that Hayek, who was the Nobel laureate who was being hired to advocate for the disassembly of the American healthcare or of any socialized system of Social Security or health, was very concerned for his own health and Social Security, and Charles Koch assured him that he himself would have the benefits of Social Security. It's just that those down the line would not. I'm less concerned about the scandal of that interaction than I am about the assertion that money has not only influenced our politics, but is now actually purchasing ideas through think tanks and is infecting the entire polarity of debate.
Yeah. Dylan, I have to tell you that's old news. Right-wing money from the Koch brothers and from other right-wingers has created, they literally have created a number of right-wing think tanks, and those guys are on TV, they're in the newspapers every day, pushing the corporate agenda, pushing the agenda for the wealthiest people in this country.
Last question, and I'll let you go, Senator. What do you think about, not that you have any a horse in the race, but what do you think about my idea of approaching the Occupy Wall Street crowd, which obviously has a tremendous amount of energy, and suggesting to them that the action item for 2012 is to get money out?
Well, I think that's part and parcel of the kinds of reforms we need in the United States of America. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Wall Street spent billions of dollars, Dylan, fighting to deregulate their industry, which led us to the illegal behavior which caused the recession. So these guys, Wall Street and these other large companies, are spending huge amounts of money influencing politics in America and the legislative agenda, and of course we've got to get that money out of politics.
Senator, it is an absolute delight to talk to you. Thanks for the time. Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.